So
I'm here with Joe Hernandez, world-renowned and famous lowrider artist and artist from San Jose. So Joe, can you talk about, I guess, just where you were born and how you or your family maybe came to San Jose?
my dad's from California. My mom's from Arizona, and in a small town in Arizona. So it's Ajo, Arizona. And my dad was stationed there at a Air Force base. And when he was done with the Air Force, he found my mom and snatched her and took her to California. So grew up there in San Jose all the way up into my young adult life.
You started getting into art, I guess, was it high school or maybe even before that?
It was probably before that as a youngster, just watching a lot of TV, inspired by different shows, kid shows. and I remember back in middle school, people noticed that I could draw. I'll tell you a funny story. One time I had a teacher ask us to draw an old church, so I got a book and saw an old church and I drew it out. And I drew the cross on top of the church and all that. And it was funny because the teacher questioned me about it. Like, you used a ruler. I know you did. And I was like, no, I just hand drew it. And after that, a lot of kids were asking me to do a little bit of sketches and stuff. So it's been pretty good.
And what high school did you end up going to?
San Jose, I was at Andrew Hill High School. And so I was there up until my junior year. And then I moved to the east side of San Jose and finished off my senior year at James Lake High School.
And I remember you telling me that there's a professor that was very influential for you in San Jose and led you into doing competition style work. Yeah,
it was really interesting, just floating around in high school. And then I decided to take art classes one-on-one. It was cool. I kind of took the class to have a free class because it was just art. But the teacher challenged me with a project, and I brought it in the next day. I stayed up all night drawing this pencil sketch of Bruce Lee, and he was amazed. He was just like, "Wow, you did that!" And so from that day on, he encouraged me to do a lot more stuff and challenged me. So I was cool with that. I liked drawing what I was drawing, so it's good.
So looking at a lot of your artwork, you have a very unique style, right? And do you think that style started with that Bruce Lee painting that you did, or that drawing, or that painting, or how did that style evolve?
It started out when I was a little kid. My mother loved going to the movies, and it was like every weekend we went to the movies, and they were good movies, from action to John Wayne and other characters. But I liked the movie so much, so walking out, I would look at the poster in front of the movie theater. And the movie posters, what inspired me, because the movie posters trying to tell you the story of what's in the movie. And so basically it was a collage, of different characters. And so I've kind of always liked that. And I always went home and I'd go, I'm going to draw that poster from the movie theater. And when Billy Jack came out, I had to do a Billy Jack poster. And so did it all in pencil. And that's how I kind of looked at stuff. I used to go through the newspaper and look at all the movie theater section and just look at all the clippings and the artwork, because there was a lot of artwork. And so I kind of picked up on that style. And then later on, I started seeing other artists that did collages. I started looking at a lot of albums, and because a lot of albums back then from the 70s and the 80s was real creative, was artwork. Nowadays it's all pictures and pictures of people and stuff. So got inspired by that. And then in high school, I was just challenged with different things. The art teacher at Andrew Hill was into marketing and advertising. Commercial art is what we called it back then. Nowadays it's graphic arts, or graphic artists. And so it was kind of interesting. It was a new realm. He was definitely into comics. He was into drawing characters, and he knew all about that world. I guess he was going down that path when he was a younger man. So it was kind of interesting. I grew up with comic books, Spider-Man, Batman on the way to school, buying at the store, and all that inspired me too as well. So I kind of just started trying different things. Looked at watercolors and acrylics and oil painting, and my art teacher just kept challenging me. He goes, "I want you to do an oil painting," and then it took me couple of months to do the oil painting because you got to smash that paint around and make it look good and try to get the color you need. And so it was challenging. I was able to do it, but it was a long process for me.
Oh, that's so cool, because when you look at your lowrider posters that you've done and your calendars, you can really tell that there's that influence that is carried through from that comic book style, but also the collage style coming together. Yeah. So you can really tell that that's a Joe Hernandez piece when you look at them. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And then when I went over to James Lake High School, I met another artist. We were in the same classroom. And man, he was just drawing stuff left and right. I was like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? And so we became good friends, but he was into comics. He was definitely into the whole realm of comics. And he knew some friends that had a marketing business and for advertisements and ads. And we used to go there and visit, but they were mainly doing all comics, doing storyboards and coloring. And I was like, wow, this is all fascinating, behind the scenes of what it takes to make a comic book. So I was like, wow. So I kind of ventured into that more, visited the comic book stores and looked at all the different things they had. So it's interesting because there's a lot of art when you visit a comic book store, from statues to posters, and it's just overwhelming.
Yeah, now I want to say that you're like the superhero lowrider comic illustrator.
Yeah, I tried. And when I got out of high school, after I graduated, I learned a lot of things along the way. I was doing sign painting, met people that knew how to do that. And then I started looking at it, I go, I could make money at this, and so that's what I was looking at. I was like, how can I use my art to make some money and create an income? And when I got out of high school, I went to Evergreen College, junior college, and tried to get my credentials going. Took art classes there. Interesting, they had live models, so I did sketching like that. And, some of these teachers at art school, they want you to explore, like throw some paint on it and, get it out there, what you're trying to create. So. And I found that I was more of a detailed artist, a realistic artist in my style and how I paint. It's kind of fun. I like when I get excited about a project and then I just get into it and stay up to the wee hours of the night painting and drawing. So it's been good. And then so I did a year of that. And then after that, I just kind of kept going, just started finding different venues to do some marketing and advertising. So but I did everything by hand back then. They didn't have a computer that spit out letters and designs and InDesign and all that stuff. It was all by hand, which is the old school style of doing that kind of art. So I got really good with the pen and brush, ink, used a lot of ink. And then I got into airbrush. I saw a guy using an airbrush in high school in the art class. And I was fascinated by that. And I go, wow, that looks cool. After that, I just kind of kept exploring different venues of marketing and stuff. So did a lot of advertising in San Jose.
Was it during the Evergreen years that you got introduced to Lowrider? I guess the owners of Lowrider magazine?
No, my family knew that I was an artist, from a young kid to teenage years. And my cousin, Alicia Madrid, she is married to Sonny Madrid. And so when the magazine was starting out, they wanted a calendar to promote buying issues of the Lowrider magazine, a subscription. And so knocked on my door one morning, there's Sonny and my cousin, and they go, hey, we want you to do a poster for us for the Lowrider calendar. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And so I worked day and night and created that collage of the calendar. And then it got published. And so I was really excited about that, seeing it published and circulating out there. And my art teacher from high school, he encouraged me, man, get as much as your stuff in that magazine. Because he was more about exposure, get exposure. Right. This is a good starting place for you. Of course, I wasn't into comics, but anyway, he was definitely happy that I was able to get my stuff out there.
So is that the calendar that's behind you there? The red, is that the one, the first one?
Yeah, this one right up there.
The red one?
That one,
Okay.
very first artwork for Lowrider magazine. And it's a collage, and it kind of captured the scene of what was going on, and being in high school, I was out there cruising with my buddies and lowriders and seeing the scene, Story and King, and just all the hangouts. Those were images of our culture back then. So I was trying to get that into the poster, and it went well. Everybody just dug the poster and was like, yeah. So I knew I was onto something after that. Get it in there. What can I do? What can I change? And looking at the magazine too, and how it was put together and what they were doing in it and stuff. I remember all they could afford was black and white photos and publication. And the only thing that was color was the cover and the back page. And later on, you can see that the magazine was evolving because they were putting more color pictures into the magazine. So it's kind of cool.
So what was I guess in your opinion, can you describe the lowrider scene in San Jose around that time when it was pretty much exploding, all over San Jose, right?
Yeah. It was the weekend. It was a 3-day weekend, because Sunday you were out cruising, you were at the parks and stuff. But Friday night you were hitting Story and King. And then right there was the disco place and the flea market, real famous big parking lot. And we used to cruise that all in there, everybody pack in there, walking around, talking to everybody. And of course, meeting people and ladies and meeting guys and looking at cars. It was really cool, and then just cruising till the wee hours of the night, till 1 o'clock in the morning. And then you hear about parties. So you go raid somebody's house at a party. Didn't last long because the police were there and made everybody leave. Neighbors complained. But it was fun times. It was pretty cool. And then they even go out on a Sunday, just to hit the park, good weather, people jamming their oldies and music and cruising. It was fun times. And then I got into photography, so I was definitely out there taking pictures of the scene and stuff. Lowrider magazine encouraged me to, hey, go out there, go to the car shows and take pictures, bring them back, and we'll put them in the magazine. And I'm all right, cool. So I had a couple of 35 millimeter cameras, so I was running around taking pictures. At the same time, I was taking pictures of stuff that I wanted to draw. So that was kind of cool.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't realize that actually your photos actually made it into the magazine in the earlier issues. Is that when they were published?
Yeah, and it was more pen and ink because they didn't do color back then. So they had some articles. They addressed a lot of things in the lowrider scene. So they had an article about the police and hydraulics. So I had to draw this picture of a police officer with his shades. And then inside the shades, you could see a car hopping in the glasses. And then I helped out a little bit with some of the ads and stuff, just cleaning them up, making them look more decent. So, because everything was just kind of hand drawn, doing the ads.
So tell me about the lowrider, the story behind the lowrider man.
Yeah, when the first year the magazine came out in 1977, and then and I think it was in July issue, they put out the back cover for the poster. After that, I started looking at the magazine more, and each cover in the first issue, the second issue, and the third issues, the design just kind of started shifting, and the lettering that they had for Lowrider there was, the Cholo, style of writing and stuff back then. I don't know what they call it these days, but anyway, graffiti art. And so I looked at that and I go, wow, I should redo that. And so I started looking at the little emblem they had on there to indicate how much the magazine costs, and they had a list. They just, with a felt pen, just drew a line and threw a hat and said one bola. And they had the dollar sign on it. And I looked at it and I go, wow, I should redo that. And sure enough, I just refined it, made it more modern. And with the hat, glasses, and mustache, and Lowrider just really dug it. They were just like, "Wow, this is cool. We want to put this in there." So it hit the cover. As the magazine evolved, they changed the Lowrider logo to Old English, and I looked at that and I go, "Well, I can make that better." So I redid the logo for Lowrider, and it was the Old English with the Lowrider logo on it. And I think it got published for about a year, using that logo and emblem. And all of a sudden, the logo just started popping up all over the magazine, inside the magazine. And that same year, they had the first car show. So that was at the fairgrounds. So that was pretty cool. So I was able to create the poster for that. And so I just kept rolling, pen and ink. I didn't get into airbrushing until later on, but I was trying to get this out on my board and just share as much as I could. So it was exciting, actually.
Man, that's an incredible story, because that face is that Lowrider Man face is so iconic, right?
Yeah.
Everybody sees that face and they know that it's Lowrider magazine, right? That you can't separate the two now, and that's all because of you. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to look back and go, wow. And then nowadays you see people, it's everywhere. It's on shirts and tattoos and cars and, every lowrider show that was on there. So it was pretty cool. It was like, that's pretty awesome. So I just kept working more and more and trying to put more positive stuff in there and trying to be creative. So I had that opportunity. As the magazine rolled, they wanted me to do a centerfold. So I was the first artist to do a centerfold in the Lowrider magazine, and I had to do it in pen and ink. So, and then they gave me one color, so I was able to put one color in there. So I had two colors, black and blue, or black and red. And so I did I did two centerfolds, and then after that, Teen Angel came into the scene and started doing some centerfolds as well.
What was the first centerfold? Was that where like the glass house is on the hill?
It was actually a drawing of Story King, the flea market parking lot. And I drew a bunch of cars all hanging out and people walking around. So captured the scene. So a lot of people dug it. And they were ripping that centerfold out and putting it on the wall. It was a poster. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think they had that one on display. If I remember correctly, it was like the Disco East, right? And there was
there you go. There you go.
Like people looking at the cars in the parking lot. Yeah, they had that on display at the library.
Oh, excellent.
People still love your artwork, man. It's crazy.
That's awesome. Just chatting with you made me think about a lot of things I was doing back then. So it's been really good.
Did you work in the Lowrider office as well?
Yeah, they had a location there in San Jose. It was in a house, actually, and an old house. And so we were kind of basically operating out of the kind of like a basement or lower level of the house. And so there was just stuff everywhere, a lot of photos and just the team trying to put the magazine together and how it was going to look and stuff. So I got to witness that. That's when I was able to go over there and drop off my artwork and then communicate with them what they needed and stuff. And then later on, after I started working more and more with them, Teen Angel showed up. I got to meet him. He was there with the team and creating, art for the magazine. So he was readily, he was a lot older than me, and me, I was still young, running out there trying to make a living, and but he was readily available for the magazine. So if they had something they needed on a corner of a page, he goes, well, can you draw something? And he would just hash it right out. He was just constant. And then an advertiser would come in, we need an ad for this tire company. And he would just hash it out. And so they liked him a lot. He was just right on the spot. They were moving along with the magazine. And so he got a lot of art exposure. He was an interesting guy. He was different, and when looking at my style, and it's got to be sharp. It was just totally different, but it related to the culture. The magazine welcomed it, and a lot of people welcomed it because he was creating stuff that related to the people.
Yeah, because your style, like I said, it's so unique. Like even looking at that fairgrounds poster over there, right? Like you have this really unique perspective, right? But if you compare that with like Teen Angels, it's very flat, right? There's not really a whole lot of dimension to that artwork.
Right.
It might be depth of field, but yours has like this levels of perspective that kind of get folded into a lot of the artwork. Or even looking at that other one over looks like your left shoulder over there, because that's like a red car with, is that a soda bottle or something in front of it?
Yeah. As the Lowrider magazine was doing the car show and kind of moving with the movement, a lot of other people wanted to, be part of the car shows. They realized they were a big event. And so there was a guy that was wanted to sponsor a car show. He wanted to do one. And so he approached Sonny and them, and he goes, I want to know who Joe is. And so we connected, and he approached me and he goes, yeah, I want you want you to make this poster. And he told me, he goes, and I wanted to be full color. And I go, what? Full color? Are you serious? So I got to be able to like paint, like, yeah. So I got right into it, and it was for a car show. So he told me he had Michelob as a sponsor for the event. So I made this poster, and I drew like a plaque, and then I drew like a car coming out of it. It was really cool. It was amazing. It was like my full effort of airbrushing. I was capturing it, and the guy saw it, and he paid me $1,000 for it. I was like, what? $1,000? Yeah, you get full color. So anyway, it was really good. He was excited. He went down to Lowrider and showed it to Sonny, and Sonny was just blown away how I evolved from that pen and ink all over to airbrushing. And it did get published in the magazine, so that was like a cool thing. The only problem was he went back to Michelob. This guy went to Michelob and said, hey, look, here's the posters, sponsored the show. And they didn't think lowriding was a thing for them to market. So they went to Coors, and Coors said, yeah, we'll do it. So I had to take the bottle out, and then down at the bottom of the poster, they showed the Coors bottle, Coors can.
And how long were you with Lowrider then?
I started in 77. I worked up until about, I think probably about 4 years. I think I did about 4 years, because the magazine was shifting a lot. And, the magazine started getting big sponsors and advertisers. And so they were able to put more color on the magazine. And they switched it over to the Centerfold to being more photos of cars and ladies and guys. So it became a feature thing. And people like that. A lot of the lowriders liked that magazine, the way it was turning into. So yeah, about 4 years. And then I think I did in 84, I did that calendar cover. It was kind of different. You look at the calendar and you see all these different styles of artists, and then there's mine. It's all refined. And
you always hit it out of the park when it comes to like that chrome looking artistic style as well.
Yeah, I really like that a lot. I was putting in a lot of different things. And when I made the cover sheet, I was doing the logo, like the front car of an emblem, how Chevy and Ford. Yeah. So I was trying to do one that looked like a lowrider one. So, and then I did the February issue, and I did that red truck, which is right over there.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so that one came out really good. I kind of captured I was talking to Jimmy at Time Warp, and he was talking about that painting. He goes, yeah, it looks like Morgan Hill. And I go, yeah, that's what I was drawing. The mountains and the trees and stuff. Because we used to travel through there back in the day, and the scenery was like a big thing for me.
When I first saw that, I thought that was a photo, just because it looks so real. And then when I started looking close at it, I was like, man, this is a painting. This is incredible. Is that oil then, or
it was all airbrush? Yeah,
that's all airbrush.
Yeah.
It looks so good. So you mentioned that that Michelob wasn't really kind of jiving with the lowrider scene at that time. Yeah. What was your sense of like people accepting lowrider culture, either in San Jose or the advertising world that actually expands beyond San Jose, of course? But what's your take on that?
Back then there wasn't a whole lot focusing around marketing towards lowriders and the culture. It was kind of like we were out there in the culture. We didn't see beyond that, because that was the coolest thing to be hanging around, seeing cars and meeting people. And yeah, it was just, we were in the culture. We were living in the culture. And it wasn't until years later on when the magazine started exploding that the marketers started, chiming in and trying to be part of it. So
interesting. Yeah. So like you were developing as it was living. You were witnessing its evolution as you were publishing the magazine.
Yeah. And I wanted to just do more with that. And I wish I had more opportunities, but the magazine just was focusing on its audience. And so there was a lot of cool sections in the magazine. A lot of artists were sending in they had a page for people sending in their artwork. So that was a cool thing. The magazine was like, wow, that's pretty cool. We're just getting through much of this stuff. And it was people wanting to be in the magazine. And then they had the other page where it showed a lot of the old pictures of back in the 50s. in the 50s. So I was always looking at how I could incorporate some kind of art piece into the magazine to cover certain sections and stuff. But, Sonny just said, you know what, let's do something with all these pictures, these artwork that everybody's sending in. He goes, we'll just throw it into a book. We'll make our Lowrider art book. And it was a big book. And I was like, wow, when I saw that venue, I go, man, I got to get something in this book. and then you got to see everybody else's stuff. It was just pretty awesome. It was inspiring, and Dave Gonzalez got his stuff in there. He was doing some pretty cool paintings, different from what I was doing, but I never really got into that in the art book, but I did create a piece for it. It was the third issue. I was over here working on the side and created this really cool picture. But I took it to Sonny and them, and they go, "It missed the deadline. Can't. It's already being published." I'm like, "Oh." And so it's a cool piece. I'll show it to you. It's pretty amazing.
You have copies of all of your stuff?
Yes, I've been trying to get a lot, digital and get it on the computer. I will show you that picture. You'll like it. It's pretty awesome.
So after Lowrider, then where did you transition to? So what happened after?
Disco started popping in, and it was getting popular. And I met a DJ, Richard Sanchez. He's a Radical Rich back then, and he was like an upcoming DJ. He was really different, and he was just a mover and shaker. And so he was doing a lot of events, and so he approached me and he asked me to do a logo. I go, "Can you do a logo? Sounds tripping." It was the name of his DJ company, and I did it. And back then I was charging $100 for logos. That was my fee, $100. He loved it. He goes, "Wow!" And then he goes, "Let me, make me another one." So all these events that he was sponsoring, because he was doing dances at, convention centers, anywhere he could play and draw a crowd and make money, charter people to come and have a good time. And so I've done I got to explore more things with him because I could be creative. I was trying to capture this movement of music and style, and I always threw his pictures in the poster, so he liked looking at himself. So it was a cool thing. I did a pretty good portrait of him. So I did a lot with him, and I got introduced to some of the nightclubs that do a lot of marketing and posters and stuff. So I was able to. I started working more and more on my graphic arts, actually, and just doing stuff for different businesses. And so I was doing a lot of advertising. It was fun. I learned a lot of stuff. Back to what Sonny was doing with the art magazine was pretty cool. There was a lot of great artists in there. I was very inspired. So I just kept drawing other things. Started, I did a little bit of everything. I did some murals. I painted a airbrush on my father's El Camino. That was my first attempt on a car. Yeah, it was pretty cool. He used to get pulled over. He said, "Where'd you get that? Is that a decal?" And he goes, "No, it was painted on there." What murals in San Jose did you do that? I don't know if they're around anymore. I doubt it. But I looked at murals. I did one mural for a hair salon, and I drew this lady with her blonde hair, and it's still there today, believe it or not. But I did it back in the 80s. Yeah, and so and people recognize it when I tell them that I did that, and they go, "Yeah, I see that all the time." So it's a pretty cool piece. And then I did some other ones. I never did anything big. That was probably my special airbrush, thing to put it on the wall. And so, but I never really got into doing anything big or huge. I would love to do some, and my future plans are to do some murals. I got to bring you back to San Jose and Joe Hernandez original out here. So it sounds like you remained a commercial artist. Yeah, pretty much. I'm still doing it. The technology now. I have to go learn the graphic programs and stuff. So I've dabbled in it for quite a few years. I just never sat down and made it a hardcore thing for me, because I was more about, I want to do airbrushing. I want to do stuff that I can do with my hands. So I've always looked at everything I was doing just to be more creative. What can I change it? How can I make it look more real? And just learned a lot of stuff. It's just really interesting. And I can go on and on what I'm doing here in New Mexico, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because I moved out here and wanted to continue doing what I was doing. So why did you move away from San Jose? I met my my wife up there, my first wife, and she was from New Mexico, and came down here to visit. And I fell in love with New Mexico. I fell in love with Albuquerque. They call it the land of enchantment. So, but it was just nice out here. I wanted my kids to grow up out here. Because California was up and coming and growing, a lot of cities. I wanted them to see the country. It's beautiful out here. Yeah.
So it's interesting because New Mexico has a big lowrider scene as well, right? So I think Española is kind of the
correct.
A central location over there for lowriding. Yeah. How would you compare that to San Jose's style of lowriding?
It's kind of like back in the old days, if you ask me. How the scene is. The cities are not real big, but there's car clubs and cruisers and hangout. Española is a couple of hours away from me, but I meet people and I always hear about Española and I always hear about the lowriders. And I do want to get out there and see more and see what's going on out there and see what the movement is. But it's kind of cool. It's still going on here. I think they're trying to create a museum out there or something. Last time I looked.
They have a small like lowrider history museum from what I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I think San Jose really needs something like that as well, right?
Yeah.
Because of people like you that was there from the very beginning, especially with Lowrider magazine, really started showing people what lowriding was all about, right? So they captured the lowrider culture through photos, through writing, and then you through artwork, right? Just capturing a moment in time of action that's just like a comic book, like you said. Right. It makes so much sense now, knowing your background in that type of artwork, that you're able to capture that moment.
I really fell in love with the airbrush, and I liked that I could get results right away. Throw this color, that color, and then if you make a mistake, you cover it up. But it's just, I just like it. It's just challenging. It's just, how do I get from point A to point B and make it evolve, to stand out. So I can't wait to get back more into doing it. I got some art pieces that I need to go back and finish up. So.
Yeah, what's cool too is that from the magazine and the exposure you got from the magazine, you were able to carry that through as a career, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, and the more I look back at it, I go, wow, I was moving in what I could do out there. Later on, I met people through the Lowrider magazine, and Sonny was using these different print shops to print out the magazine, and so he wanted me to get more involved with the magazine, to how to save money, and but he wanted me to learn more about the behind the scenes of how the magazine got published, and so that I could bring that skill back to the magazine, and the magazine could be further along in their publications and stuff. So the gentleman that I started working for shot all the negatives off the magazine to go to press. So I got to learn a lot about that. And one day I brought my artwork in, and the guy that owned the business, his name was Victor, and he looked at it and he was just blown away. It was actually that picture right there.
Okay.
He was, wow, that's amazing. And he just asked more questions about me, and I told him, well, I didn't go to college, I didn't get a bachelor's, I didn't study more. And he looked at me and he goes, Joe, you don't need all that. It shows right here in your work what you can do. And that was like a light bulb that went off. That inspired me. I go, he's right. It's about what I have. It's what I show that shows my talent. I don't need to show my credentials that I went to school and did all these things. And so after that, I just started doing more. It was like, create more, do more. And I've learned a lot. I learned a lot from different people I worked for or met. And so I understood the marketing world, and I understood back then how things got done. Nowadays, it's all on the computer. You just hit the send button and then they get the artwork and print it out. Technology is really advanced.
How do you stay from burning out, right? How do you remain creative? Especially back then when Lowrider was so fast paced, right? Like an issue was coming out every month, right? And you had to have art ready to go. So how did you stay with your creative juices flowing?
you got to study and look at a lot of things. And you get ideas from here and there. And so when I look back at my style and my art and stuff, I can see where it all came from and how I got there. And so I just continue doing more. Like any artist, you start something and then you get bored with it. Push it aside, then get something else, whatever interests you. So that's why I say I got to get back to a couple of paintings because there's something at that point distracted me away from it. Or you get bored with it and you go, let me do something else. But you have to be in it. You have to be looking at it. You have to be studying it. You have to find out who you like and look at them. And because we get fascinated when we look at art. We're like, wow, how'd that happen? What was the thing behind that? And back then, art was really art. Nowadays, you got computers, you got graphics, Photoshop. You can create a lot of things, but there's nothing like original art because it's the hand that does it. One thing I learned too when I was in high school and stuff, because I was like, I'm copying this guy's stuff and I'm copying that guy's stuff and putting it in here, and people looking, wow, I was able to do that. And then I realized, I copied their stuff, but I did it with my hand and I did it with my style. And so it became a new piece. So I never felt guilty about, copying other people's style. Because that's how we evolve as artists.
Yeah, I think your story is so incredible just because a lot of people will say, well, what are you going to do with an art degree, right? Like, how can you make money as an artist? But like your story shows you exactly what can happen, right? Just having pure talent, being able and understanding how to link your brain and your hand together and create something out of nothing, right? Or just an idea. Did you ever work with Biney Ruiz in San Jose? You remember her?
Yeah. What was the name of her company? Or
5 Star Productions. She would do like a lot of car shows and events and concerts all around the area. I did some work
with her because she knew I was around and doing stuff with Lowrider. There used to be 5 Star Records. It was a little company back in the day, and then so I was doing stuff for her. Richard was hooked up with her. They tried to do some promotions and do some dances and stuff. So
it seems like a lot of the pioneers of the lowrider culture were all like interconnected. Right. And that's what really made it explode for some reason. The magazine and the concerts and the car shows and the artwork was all kind of merging right at the same time and created this really unique moment in San Jose history.
And the other part was that I did it in pen and ink, so it was easy to publish.
What are your future plans now? What do you plan on doing with your artwork? And
well, I mentioned it before, I want to get back into just looking at it more, doing more, feeding my brain. It's funny. I hadn't been active with art and stuff. And then when I sat down to do it, I was just like, I couldn't get anything out. I was just like, I was stuck.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about it. And I go, it's because my mind's not around it. It's not around the art. It's not around thinking about it. Because if I'm thinking about my job and doing all these other things, I'm not in it, And so I want to start to focus on more of that and just create more airbrush paintings. I'm really into like capturing the scene of lowriders and stuff. So, because that's in me, so I just want to get it out on the board and start airbrushing.
So you have to be around lowriders in order to create lowrider art, right? I mean, not necessarily, but it makes it easier, especially in your case, I guess.
Yeah, it's cool. We have there's always little mini car shows around here in town, and we have a plaza here. It's the Old Town Plaza. It's a historical plaza. There's a church there, and I like every Sunday, a lot of lowriders go cruise and park at the park and play music, and it's cool to cruise through there and just see these beautiful cars, and I'm like, I gotta paint that, or that scene right there. So I think I'll be doing stuff with a little bit more New Mexico flavor in my work because I'm over here and I'm seeing the culture and stuff. So it should be pretty cool. It should relate to a lot of people out here. Santa Fe is like the capital of artist work, the capital of art in the whole world.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
All people come to Santa Fe. and there's like huge galleries, and it's a lot of the culture, the Indians, the natives, the scenery. It's huge. So when I moved here, I go, wow, that's kind of interesting, but maybe down the road there'll be a gallery of lowrider stuff, pictures, because it's all that's where Espanola is. It's up that way. So
right, yeah, you deserve to be in there, man. You gotta artwork.
Gotta have goals. Gotta have goals and dreams. Get it out there.
Yeah, it's interesting how artists will just remain creative no matter what, right? Like you always have the next idea. It might take a while for that idea to kind of manifest, but
yeah,
there's always something kind of brewing in the back of your mind. And it's amazing that you're still creating artwork, right? That you're still working with the airbrush and, eager to get that work out.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about where can I use the airbrush? Let me spray this. Let me spray that.
Yeah. Do you have a car currently, or do you have any plans on building another lowrider?
All the good cars are taken. This for years. And out here there's a lot of farms and little ranches and stuff, and you'll find an old car out there. But people know now that go knock on their door and go, hey, you want to sell that clunker out there? And they're nice cars. They just need a little love and help. And some of these people just preserve them for so long, they're just like in mint condition. But my dad back in the day had a 64 Impala. So I've always liked that car. So it was funny. We were out last night, and a couple of guys were showing their lowrider cars, and it was a 64 Impala, all cherried out. And I stood there for like 20 minutes just looking at the work that went into it. It's just amazing. So my goal is to get a 64 Impala one day. If it comes across at the right price, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I would do it stock. I would do it stock. I wouldn't lower it. I would put rims because that's how I remember it.
When was the last time you were in San Jose?
Oh my gosh, it's been a long time. I couldn't even tell you. It's been over 20 years probably.
Yeah, because I think the lowrider scene out here has really, I don't know, kind of blossomed again. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of people that are interested in the culture from a younger generation, and then the city just lifted the cruising ban. So you probably remember when the cruising ban went into place and how it was of not cruising, but the city, in June just actually removed or repealed the ban. So it's everyone's out here kind of celebrating the culture again and really eager to learn about the history of lowriding out here, especially in San Jose.
I'm always sharing with people, just about San Jose and who I am and what's happening. So it's interesting to see that it's still going on after all these years. It's pretty cool.
What do you have for like a message for everybody that's kind of listening, either about yourself or about the culture? Or
well, from an artist perspective, just keep doing. The more you do, the more you get better, and it's so self-rewarding. To when you're done and you made a piece, and it's part of you. So, and then as far as the culture, it's awesome that we're part of the culture and that we can continue that going on. It's always good to look back at our history and our family and just moving forward with our kids, and anybody around us. So
like you created this iconic style that would capture our, a lot of our histories, right? A lot of you might have even been drawing people that are actually from people's families, right? I don't know if the people that you drew are actually made up characters or they were based on actual photos of people's family members. Do you have insight on that? I look at a lot of pictures and try to draw from them and see what fits into what I'm doing. A lot of people say about that one right there, that looks like me in there. The mustache, and maybe it was me because you were over there painting. I probably had a mirror and was looking at myself. Yeah. Well, anything else you want to add before we?
No, I'm just. It's cool to meet you, and I appreciate you reaching out, and we're talking and stuff. So we're just gonna keep this friendship going.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I definitely want to capture more stories of folks from San Jose that were really there, that were pioneers from back in the day. And I don't know if you know anybody else that that would be interested in kind of just sharing their origin story, right? So I think it's important to capture these, but also give you some visibility as well, right? Just through whatever platforms we can.
Oh, cool. Yeah,